We now take you to the broadcast of It's Time with Reverend Nathaniel W. Martin. Here's Reverend Martin.
Thank you, Dr. Blackwell. Let me say, Hotep, Baragani, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, but never good night, and certainly never goodbye. I still get traumatized by goodbyes, but that's personal. My name is Reverend Nathaniel Wayne Martin. I'm the pastor of the New Life Institutional Baptist Church here in the city of Los Angeles. We're located at 8916 South Main Street. We're being hosted and sharing the services with our sister church, the Shiloh Missionary Christian Church, pastored by my good friend, the Dr. Della F. Holiness. And we thank God for this fellowship and this communion. And we welcome you to any and all of our services. You know, they say when the Baptists and the Charismatics get together, it's always bound to be a shouting in the camp. So we thank God for this service, for this communion, for this fellowship, and we just trust in the Lord that it will continue to enrich the lives of all who come in contact with us. We have services tonight, which is Friday night, 7 o'clock. That's more or less a evangelistic gift night. If you have gifts, you're welcome to share within reason and within bounds. Any of you that have been in the work a long time, you know what I'm talking about. Some people just go all overboard, so you got to hold the rein. You know, you tell people to make yourself at home, then they want to go in the bedroom. You understand? So, within bounds, please feel free to exercise your gift. Then on Sundays we have, of course, Sunday school at 10 a.m. and then beginning thereafter at around 11:15 we have morning worship. And of course we're back to our 3:30 services on Sunday evenings, the pandemic notwithstanding. And we welcome you to accommodate us or to participate or to come by and fellowship with the saints. It'll be a blessing to you, and you will leave in a better condition than you came. All right. The offering which you are viewing, or this presentation, is entitled It's Time. And what is it time for? It is time for environmental justice, and it is time for economic justice. I'm so happy to hear that the paperwork has been signed and Bruce's Beach is going to be returned to that family. They say that property is worth $20 million. It was wrongfully taken away from them by the honorable fathers, white fathers of Manhattan Beach, who did not want any colored people or Negroes or black folks, as you will, to have businesses in the city of Manhattan Beach. Manhattan Beach is one of the most expensive zip codes in the nation, and it got that way because they decided that they just would not let any black people have businesses there. So the Bruce family, Miss Willa Bruce and her husband, he was a Pullman porter, but they were able to put their money together and buy that strip of land, and it was the only place, one of the few places in the state of California where Negroes could come and get close to the beach, get to the water. And of course the white folks took even that away. That's why I'm saying we have to have economic justice. And of course economic justice means reparations, and California was the first state to actually have a reparations committee for the sake of seeing how you could compensate or repair black folks for the slavery, chattel slavery, and then of course the years following the Reconstruction period, in which all of the black codes and all of the laws that really reinstituted slavery, but just under a different name, and without the white folks having to be accountable for the upkeep. They had to remember, they had the upkeep of the slave. They had to house the slave, they had to feed the slave, they had to clothe the slave. But when they under the new Jim Crow era, didn't have to do all of that, and they could work you to death, which they did work you to death. And what had been gained during the Civil War as it related to freedom, was soon countermanded or pushed back or pushed against, so that the Negroes coming out of slavery were in a worse condition than the Negroes who had actually been in slavery. And California was one of the first states that had a reparations commission. Keep in mind that it was only by the grace of God that California didn't come into the Union as a slave state. It upheld slavery. It contributed to the Confederacy. A lot of the people who fought in the Confederacy were from California. And while California, like I said, came in as a free state, its sympathies lay with the Confederacy. Actually, they had slaves out here, and Biddy Mason was able to purchase her freedom. Biddy Mason is the one of the founders of the first African-American Episcopal Church here in Los Angeles. She bought property downtown Los Angeles. The property is still there. She even had property on Bonnie Brae, which was later the site of the Azusa Street outbreak, homecoming, outpouring of the Holy Ghost there. And of course, at that time, it was common, of course, for the colored people, or the Negro people, as they were referenced, who weren't called black until much later. We were kind of hemmed in downtown, in other words. And then when the powers that be decided, well, we want this land down here. They did to the Negroes what they did to the Indians. They took the land and then forced the Negroes to sell and move out. Even in the case of Bruce's Beach, there was that same mentality that the white establishment, in order to cement their holdings and their rulings, pushed the formerly enslaved persons out from downtown. But they had black folks had a good foothold in downtown Los Angeles. You can't buy an inch of ground down there now, but at that time, Negroes could buy in downtown Los Angeles, and they did. And it was only by trickeration and eminent domain, which you heard me talk about, that played such a prolific role in urban renewal, or as the black folks call it, Negro removal. And these type of exploits and strategies and tactics were employed liberally by our so-called city fathers. And so the Reparations Committee is dealing with all of that, and their first criteria was that you had to prove your lineage, And then no sooner than we had said you had to prove your lineage, then we realized that a lot of the white people who were studs in order to propagate their slave empire would likewise have slaves in their families. So all of a sudden, no sooner than you started to get a remedy, than you see that there are flaws in that remedy. And really, Dr. Sandy Darity had the best idea, was that you would start after Reconstruction, and then as a result of all of the segregation laws that were passed and enforced against black people, colored or Negro people, remember that there was a time when the white establishment had pushed all black representation out of the Congress and out of the elective office, and had removed the franchise effectively from the newly freed, formerly enslaved. And as a result of these black codes, as they were called, and out here in California, you had racial restrictive covenants, which mean that if I was a white person and I bought this house, then I signed a covenant in my purchase that I would never sell this house to a Negro, as if I was a white man. And so that kind of eliminated the black people from owning good housing. And where your house is, that's where your school is. So naturally, the best schooling was where the white folks were, because that's where the resources were. It wasn't so much that the education was superior, but if you were in a school, a school district where it was supported by the tax base, and the people, usually white folks, were able to talk to the PTA or be on the PTA or be on the school board, then the school resources were very prevalent. In the separate but equal scheme, the white schools got the lion's share of the taxes, whereas the colored schools, even though the law said separate but equal, but separate was never equal. And of course, this went on until even after Brown v. Board in 1954, because, in Delaware and in those states, Virginia, they closed the schools rather than integrate. And those schools stayed closed for 5 years, counted 5 years. Black kids were not in school. And that was the birth of these white academies that were white only, because the black folks couldn't afford to send their kids to the private schools. But that's where the good teachers were. And so the public school system was hurt all across the nation. And of course, don't come south, Arkansas, Faubus, and Alabama, and those states mandated they would close the school rather than let their schools be integrated, and those white kids would go to school with Negroes. They were dead set against it. And so if you're going to have reparations, you need to take all of that and more into consideration. And since the Supreme Court has ruled that race cannot be a factor, then you see the high hill and hurdle that you have to climb in order to get racial compensation to black people, even though it was the status quo that disenfranchised the black people in the first place. But in order for the black people to get to the table, to get a little money, you're going to have to go past John Roberts, Supreme Court Justice John Roberts, and the Supreme Court. And if you saw the rulings that they put out today, this is Friday, June the 24th, and Supreme Court issued this ruling in Dobbs v. Mississippi, overruling Roe v. Wade and whatever that other case was. They overruled all of that. And so now they made abortion illegal in the United States of America, and it returned the decision whether one can have an abortion, a woman can have an abortion, to the states. And at the same time, where they say they are pro-life and they want everybody to live, they passed a gun law that says anybody can have a gun, and you cannot prohibit. And that is in spite of the Uvalde school shooting and the Buffalo, New York school shooting before that. So there you go. You don't know. I don't think the Supreme Court has any sanity, and they are quickly losing their credibility in the eyes of the public because they're doing the same thing that they did in the Dred Scott decision. They're almost setting the groundwork for a civil war. And mark my words, just like you had that insurrection in January 6th of 2021, you can have another insurrection going forward because the seeds are there, the unrest is there. And then the people who want to create that unrest are still alive and still in power. Remember, you got 139 congressmen who said, "I do solemnly swear or affirm that I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States against all enemies, foreign and domestic." I'm reading. Let's see, all enemies, foreign and domestic, that I will bear true faith and allegiance to the same, that I take this obligation freely without any mental reservation or purpose of evasion, and that I will well and faithfully discharge the office, the duties of the office on the which I am about to enter. So help me God. They took an oath, and yet they violate that oath, as you can see in the January 6th committee, with impunity. Donald Trump was trying his best to get the Department of Justice to go along with him after he couldn't get the state secretaries of state to go along with him, try as he might. But that just shows you the power of white supremacy in this country. That this white man was able to say that I can go out in the middle of Broadway, in New York we're talking about, and murder somebody, and it won't be nothing said about it. And they have literally murdered democracy in this country. And the January 6th committee is doing its thing. Hey, this is water, by the way. Got a cough. Still lingering from that COVID-19. But look at the difference in the enforcement of the law when it is a white person and the enforcement of the law when it is a black person. When it was Mexicans, the Uvalde police officers who were sworn to go in and take the shooter out failed to do that duty. They wouldn't even let the husband of the school teacher, Miss Morales, go into that room after she had called her husband. And mind you, he was a police officer, and he was there on scene, and he wanted to go in, but the officers, the other policemen, other 19 cowards, arrested him, took his gun, and escorted him away from the premises. Now, you know he's got to be fuming and mad. And for an hour and some odd minutes, they failed to go into that room until everybody that could die was dead. And that is what we call policing. The black officer in Buffalo, New York. Oh, I wish I had his name right here, but I don't have it. I'm gonna get his name because he's worthy of honor because he did his duty. He did his duty, and mind you, this was his moonlighting job. He had retired from the Buffalo, New York police force, and he was moonlighting as a security guard at the Tops supermarket. I tell you. Oh, well, there ain't no sense in looking for it. If it ain't here, it ain't here. But anyway, this officer is to be credited because he was the only one that did his duty on that day. He actually confronted the shooter. He actually shot at the shooter, and if the shooter hadn't had all that body armor on, this officer would have been able to take him out. But the officer, I guess, didn't have on adequate body armor. But so the man, after the officer shot the man killed this police officer. But at least the point was that this officer did his duty. He confronted the shooter. These cowards down in Uvalde, they would not go in the room. Now, you can see them on camera up in Lancaster. The school resource officers is what they're called. They'll body slam a little kid, about their cell phone. Body slam them on the concrete. Some little girl named Michaela Robinson is suing the LA County Sheriff's Department now because the way that they treated her. But what my point is, they would body slam a kid, but they would not go into that room where that man was with a gun. And so those type of things are what galls me, and they should gall all of us because we all pay taxes and we all see these drills and this training, and the police released these PR videos of how they are trained to go in and confront that shooter, and they leave home, they don't know if they're going to get back. But when push comes to shove, they prove how cowardly they really are. And these good guys with guns would not confront this one bad guy with a gun until everybody that could die was dead. And then they went in and shot the man. But they could have gone in earlier and saved more lives. Because remember, some of those kids didn't die immediately. They bled out. And if the officers had got in and done their job, then more people would have survived. That's the whole point of my diatribe. All right, remember the 6th chapter of Ephesians? Put on the whole armor of God, that you may be able to stand against the wiles of the devil. For we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against principalities, against powers, against the rulers of the darkness of this world, against spiritual wickedness in high places. And that officer down there in Uvalde, Texas, they need to bring him up on charges because he was the one, Arredondo, he was the chief of the police in that little town, and he let the folks down. The people from the Department of Public, the Texas Rangers, they let the folks down. I think it was about 8 police agencies on that campus. And if you listen to the parents of the students, they would tell you that the police was more hard on us, trying to keep us out from going in there to get our kids, than they was on the shooter. And so, 5 minutes. And so you see how things are at the present stage in our nation. White supremacy is still on the ascendancy, and in the ascendant, they command the law enforcement agencies, and they don't bring that law enforcement agency against their own. They only bring it against the people who are non-white, which includes me and might include you. And this is what we are fighting against: the principalities, the powers behind the principalities, the rulers of the spiritual, rulers of the darkness of this world. Anytime a man can be not on the scene, he ain't got no radio, but he's holding all these so-called law enforcement personnel back. Remember, that door was not locked because they couldn't lock it. All they had to do was open that door and go in, which they finally did. They didn't have to wait on the man, the janitor, because the janitor didn't have the key. That door did not lock. And so all of that they told us is just so much a fabrication and a big lie. And they need to be held accountable. They, being the system, need to be held accountable for those lies, because a lot of those children died needlessly because of the fact, of course, that they were not white. And the officers out there were more interested in their safety, their own safety, than they were interested in the safety of those children. Remember, those children bled out simply because nobody came in. All right. Are we going to see any good results coming out of the January 6th committee investigation? I doubt it, because Trump is a white man, and all the people he worked with are white folks, and all the people he was trying to get to do his bidding are white folks. And one thing we know, white folks stick together. That GOP is going to stick together. They're going to coalesce. They're going to throw all of these Democrats out of office in November, and that's going to be that. Merrick Garland is moving too slow, in my opinion. They got all that they need to bring convictions or bring charges against Donald Trump for treason, and against Giuliani and all of those minions that work so hard. Whatever Donald Trump's son is, his name, got him treason, certainly. Matt Gaetz, treason. But they're not going to charge those people with what? But those people were smart enough to go to Donald Trump and ask him to give them a pardon. A pardon. Now, if that ain't white power, I don't know what is. So I'm going to tell you, those of you that are working, God bless you. Keep at it. Keep working. Do all that you can to get as much as you can for your labor. Because once you put your labor out there, you cannot get it back. And if you make a bad contract, then you'll be running around here mad as a barnyard dog, because the people are going to not pay you what you know you are worth. All right? And so God bless you and God keep you. And remember, if they don't want to pay you, if you're working for somebody and they don't want to pay you fair wages, take my advice. The slaves, if hard work and is all it took to get rich, every slave coming out of slavery, would have been a millionaire. So if they don't want to pay you, don't work for them. Thank you, Doc. We out of here.
I can hardly see the road.